In a small mist-shrouded village, nestled between ancient mountains and dense forest, there lived an old box maker. The villagers avoided him, whispering that his boxes held more than just wooden nails. One evening, a young woman appeared, slouched, with bags under her eyes and blood trickling from her forehead. "Where is he? I know you've done something with him." Ojiro was a quiet, gentle man with hands as worn and soft as the trees he carved. He had a timeless look, as though he himself were crafted from wood and memories. His shop, lined with lanterns and tucked into an alley, was easy to miss unless you were truly seeking it. Cats would settle on heavy bricks outside, watching people with calm opulence, meowing and purring softly. Anyone curious enough to enter the workshop was always greeted with a heartwarming smile and stories that stirred their deepest emotions. Hours would slip by as he served roasted tea infused with herbs, chuckling that it was essential for a good night's sleep. One late evening, Ojiro worked with ancient cedar from Mount Yoshida. Working slowly, the deep greys and browns began to take a new life, reflective, colourful, flat, like the gunmetal of his old tools. This method was passed down by his great father, a family trade renowned across Japan. He heard the door rattle, followed by a chime of a bell. Without looking, he knew who it was. It was Kimura, a young woman who had been visiting the shop for the last 3 months. She was drawn to it, while her younger brother spent time outside, walking along the uneven bricks with cats. When Ojiro took breaks, he would sit with her younger brother, who often pointed at Ojiro's tools and asked if he could use them. But Ojiro knew better than to give the boy old tools devoid of life. Instead, he preferred giving Seiko small pieces of wood filled with memories, explaining the beauty and impermanence of nature. Kimura always greeted Ojiro with a respectful smile whenever she passed. When she first visited the shop, she noticed each box was exquisitely detailed, with lids carved with leaves, constellations, and symbols that felt both familiar and mysterious. She picked up a small box, feeling its warmth, and her heart throbbed. Ojiro mentioned that the forest often left him messages, guiding him as he carved. Ojiro came forward, his eyes kind but intense. "These boxes are not for ordinary gifts," he told her. "What do you mean?" Kimura asked softly, her tone subdued. A moment passed. Kimura looked at the time, apologized, wished Ojiro good night, and left. As she walked past, a big shape blurred in front of her, stretching before sauntering away. Ojiro didn't mind the rain. He was lost in thought. The cats gathered by the shop entrance. They had appeared 6 years ago, one by one. He fed them, and most stayed, though some vanished without a trace. Despite the shop's warmth, it was an old building, rustic and hidden among tall trees. Its wooden exterior, aged by years of care, was sturdy. Green leaves cast a dappled canopy of light and shadow throughout the year. The slatted windows let beams of sunlight filter in, creating a peaceful atmosphere, mirroring Ojiro's stoic presence. The sounds of wind rustling through leaves and birdsong mixed with the rhythmic scape of his carving tools, Each tool was carefully chosen, a master's understanding of their purpose. People would occasionally visit, mesmerized by his craft, listening as he wove tales into each piece. At the back of the workshop, tucked behind a sliding door, lay Ojiro's modest living quarters. The bedroll rested on a wooden platform, surrounded by neatly organized shelves with simple garments, mementos of well-worn tools, and scrolls filled with ancient craftsmanship techniques. A single window by a sleeping area overlooked the tranquil garden, where morning dew clung to the grass and stone lanterns cast gentle evening light. As he settled in for the night, he heard the door rattle and chime. He returned to the front of the workshop, closing the door behind him. A young man, mid-20s, stood there, soaking from the rain, holding a box. He looked as if he'd interrupted something. "I found this box. It's old, and the villagers told me to bring it to you." Ojiro instantly recognized the box. He recalled finding it in one of his expeditions. He had moved to this quiet southern town in Japan, never expecting anyone would find him or bring this box. "I'm sorry to barge in so late. It took forever to find you, especially in the rain. I heard you make the best roasted herbal tea," the young man said with a smile. Ojiro noticed a bead of sweat on his forehead. Trying to steady himself, slumped slowly into a nearby chair. The young man leaped forward, catching him. "You must be tired. I'll return tomorrow instead. Could you point me to a private lodge?" "Nonsense," Ojiro replied, his voice steady, though his hand trembled slightly as he gestured to another chair. "Please sit. You're soaked, and it's too late to go out." He nodded to a small stove in the corner, where he'd been preparing tea. Its earthy aroma filled the air. "I insist. A cup of roasted herbal tea." The young man hesitated, then sat, curiosity flickering in his eyes. He looked around, noticing shelves stacked with boxes. As Ojiro poured the tea, he gathered his thoughts. "Tell me, young man," he said, "what brings you here at such an hour?" Few would travel through the woods, especially on a stormy night. The young man accepted the cup, warming his hands. "I've heard of you, Master Ojiro," he said softly, a hint of reverence. "They say you're not just a craftsman, but a keeper of stories." "My name is Horatio." The name triggered something in Ojiro. "You're the news writer who's been finding my boxes," he exclaimed. "I often read your columns, Vessels into an Unknown World, right?" He chuckled, cooling his tea. "Yes, Master Ojiro. One must intrigue the reader," Horatio said, placing his cup on the table. Ojiro looked carefully at him, sensing the weight of his presence. "So you bought the box, the one you held when you walked in?" Ojiro steadied his heartbeat, gripping his cup tightly. Horatio reached into his coat pocket, pulling it slowly out. Ojiro first noticed the smooth ridge-like contours, a tribute to mountains like Fuji and Haku. The box's top had a wave-like texture, resembling ocean lines under moonlight. Its lacquer shimmering faintly, like morning mist at the mountain's base. Along the sides, intricate patterns mimicked trails weaving through dense forest, inviting the viewer to trace their own journey. The box's base was raw, a natural grain exposed like stone-strewn slopes. These imperfections paid tribute to nature. A small brass clasp, shaped like a pine on a cliff edge, held the box shut, enduring strength and balance. Ojiro whispered a quiet prayer to protect the secrets within. Horatio placed it on a workbench. Ojiro leaned in, adjusting his glasses with curiosity. The door rattled. A ginger cat slipped in, shaking off the rain. Ojiro returned his attention to the box. "May I?" He gestured to pick it up. Horatio nodded. As he reached his fingers towards the box, the smell hit him. A deep, earthy dampness laced with the faint metallic tang of blood, as though the woods themselves were breathing out the memory of something buried, disturbed, and waiting in the rain-soaked soil.